The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
BronxNet. Your voice, your views, your vision.
Having the guy.
Good evening and welcome to BronxTalk, the Bronx's flagship television talk show. Please call in tonight with questions or comments at 718-960-7241. You can also email comments to us at bronxtalk@hotmail.com, and we'll read those on the air during a future program. Well, public advocate Bill de Blasio was scheduled for tonight, but at the last minute he was called to Albany. As soon as we get him rescheduled, we'll let you know. But press on we must, and so we will. There's been a lot of talk lately about the future and role of community boards in the city and in the Bronx. We're going to talk about that tonight, as well as talk about charter revision, the fight to develop business districts, conditions of parks, and a host of other issues with the chairman of Community Board 8 in the North Bronx, Mr. Damian McShane. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. As well as the chair of the Community Board 8 Parks Committee, Bob Bender. Good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening.
And also thanks for agreeing to come on the show at the 11th hour. We appreciate it. But there is a lot to talk about. We were just talking before the show. This is a very interesting time to be in community advocacy and community government, et cetera. So we'll start with you, Damian. The combination of city and state budget proposals, and I reviewed some of them before the show, would cut community board budgets from $200,000 potentially down to even under $150,000. Obviously, not something you could support. Do you see this budgeting as a thinly veiled philosophical shift in the role of community boards in general, or is it purely, well, we got to cut somewhere, so let's cut them?
Well, I think it's actually a combination of both to a certain degree. Clearly, there's a budget crisis in the city, and the expectation is that all city agencies, which community boards are, will have to bear some degree of responsibility or some brunt of that. But at the same time, I think it's been pretty clear that the mayor's office is not a fan of community boards. He would prefer to centralize a lot of the decision-making, in particular on land use issues, in trouble reporting. You know, you've seen the advent of 311 and the impact that's had on the city. That's removed a lot of local contact between city agencies and communities. You know, you've lost that human touch, those constituency services, and that will really be irreparably damaged if these cuts go through.
What happens if in fact these cuts go through, or even if there is some negotiation upward from your perspective, so that let's say the budget is down $25,000 or $30,000. It's hard to say what it would be. What happens?
The reality is that we're going to have to lay some people off, and this is pretty much the same situation at every board across the city. The overwhelming majority of our budgets cover personnel, our personal services. We have a very, very small operating budget of about $10,000. So upwards of $190,000 goes to pay staff who spend their days mostly on the phone with our constituents and with city agencies, doing everything from fixing a pothole to working on land use issues and interacting with city agencies.
I'm playing the other side. If the city has 311 and you can call and report a pothole and you can report all these other issues, are we duplicating the services, and why do we need a community board? Why not cut here, because we got to cut somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair argument, but at the end of the day, again, you've detached. The community board plays a critical role in connecting neighborhoods with these major bureaucracies. We provide, as I mentioned, those constituent services where we can help you navigate city agencies. I mean, noise complaints go to 311. A pothole goes to 311. What do you do if you run afoul of a local business owner or a landlord, or there's a land use issue because your neighbor is encroaching upon your property rights, or there's a developer who is seeking to build something out of context or outside of the zoning regulations? there's a voice at the end of the phone, a person that you can go speak to at your community board. We deal with economic development issues. We've helped form business associations. We've brought green markets to our local community in underserved areas. We work on book sharing programs where we bring private institutions together with public ones. There's a host of sort of behind the scene things that go on that most people take for granted, but there's a real tangible benefit to the community as a whole.
Although many of the votes and decisions now, as the ULURP process has developed, are advisory, and you don't really have authority. So I'm just throwing that out and saying, well, you can now have a voice. It may be less strong, and I guess maybe if these cuts go through, even less strong.
Yes, and I think while clearly we just have an advisory role in land use issues, in the ULURP process in particular, as you mentioned, it does give residents an opportunity to be heard, to go on record publicly with their positions, whether in favor or opposed to contentious land use issues. And we've seen those types of grassroots efforts or opposition form in part because of public hearings that community boards have held. If we were just to leave this to the folks down at City Hall, again, they would be completely detached from all of that emotion and what the impact of a lot of those developments would have on communities that they really know nothing about.
Bob, as a member of the community board, a twofold question, really. Number one, why do you do it? It takes a lot of time, takes a lot of energy. Undoubtedly, you have your own life and family and things to deal with. And the second part of it is it frustrating, ultimately frustrating or satisfying? Because after all, some of the things that Damien talked about are reality. You can have a vote, but the city or other factors will carry the day anyway.
Well, I think there's a lot you can do on the community board, and I've been happy to do it. We've had, picking up on what you were talking about before, I mean, we've recently had a situation which is ongoing down at Van Cortlandt Park with the parade grounds, which are under renovation, as you know. And the northern part of the parade ground, which we had hoped would be opening this spring, has been delayed. That displaced a lot of local leagues, local sports leagues, and in particular a soccer league with over 200 kids that would have lost their entire season. We were able to connect with one of the local schools, Riverdale Country School, which did a terrific job, made its fields available on the weekends to the local soccer club, and now those kids have a spring soccer season that otherwise they might not have had.
So even though you didn't solve that problem, and I do want to ask you about it, but you were able to be, and that's a significant force in the community.
And that's something you couldn't do through 311.
And so then back to my first question, why you do it? Because you get to do stuff like that?
You get satisfaction out of helping. There's 200 kids that are going to be able to play soccer this spring.
I do want to, we are going to get back to that notion of the parade grounds, but I want to stay on this just for a little bit. Are layers of services like the community boards, the borough president's office, the public advocate's office, a thing of the past? Because the trend is not to empower those offices, despite what the borough president said in our show and in his testimony to the recent charter revision hearing. Are these effective, or are you concerned that the control is being eroded away from those offices?
I think that the mayor's office has made a concerted effort over the past several years to consolidate government, and in particular, remove power from community boards, but also borough presidents and, as you mentioned, the public advocate.
Who's not here tonight, by the way.
I think he sees those people as roadblocks to his vision of the city. And I'm not saying he's right or wrong in what his vision is, but it's critical that we have some local voice in those decisions. Let
me throw out some specifics, and this received plenty of play. We talked about it on this show. Many in the community board opposed what is now a failed proposal to put a facility for people with needs on Cannon Place. Is the proposal dead? I mean, it basically did not fly, but many people were like, I'm not sure, stick around.
Well, they have revoked their application for funding.
Right.
So for now it's dead, but it could come back to life at any moment.
Is there a way that community, if the city came to you, or even Councilman Capel, who certainly advocated for that and has believes that those needs need to be met, if they came to you and said, we want Community Board 8's help We want the community's help in helping solve this problem. Could you come up with a solution that people would agree with? Or is it really never in my neighborhood, we don't want it?
No, I think that there is some middle ground that could have been achieved here.
Or can still be achieved.
Or can still be achieved. I don't think it could be achieved necessarily at that location, given what was presented to me. Now, again, we never heard the final plan or we never heard the final plea from the developer, but it was a very large-scale development in what was primarily a residential area. There were issues with the site itself physically and how you would construct something like this, and that kind of construction would have been very disruptive to a residential community. We had asked them to come back with a scaled-down plan, but we never really reached that point. Most of the discussions were had offline between community advocates, some of our elected officials, and the board.
Bob, I don't know if that's a topic you want to weigh in on, because I know it's not parks, but if you have something to say about it, I certainly would open the door for a member to, not only the chairman, the member should have some say.
I think the site was a big problem and concerned a lot of people. The neighborhood was very concerned about it, but even if you just looked at that location, with all the real estate boom of recent years, the fact that that site was still available, it was a very difficult site to build on. It would have been very expensive to build on, and I think that was a big concern.
Here's your test case. They're talking about that Riverdale Manor facility on Broadway, and they need to, for a number of reasons, move people out of there. Will the community board be able to find a location that everybody won't say, oh, goodness, not on my block?
We have a significant number of group homes, in particular in that area. They are always somewhat contentious. I don't think we've ever actually opposed one, although clearly there's been some members who weren't happy. It's going to be difficult to find homes for all those people in our community. There's not a lot of space for them. Most of the group homes that we have are generally full, is my impression. But my understanding is that by court order, those folks will have to be found some form of permanent housing.
Let's move into the parks realm, but it really has implications in just about everything. The Jerome Park Reservoir is a point of focus. I don't know, Bob, I know that Damien sits on the Facilities Monitoring Committee, and he's involved in that. How do you see the configuration of the reservoir when construction of that filtration plant is done? In terms of access, or in terms of, there's certainly been a number of designs about creating walkways and runways and parks around the reservoir. Well,
without getting into the specifics of any particular plan, I think that the key thing there is public access to the reservoir. There was public access before. There's no good reason why there shouldn't be public access again. And, to have that body of water and something like that in the community, and not to have it available for people to walk around, run around, et cetera, I just think is a terrible shame. So to me, exactly how we configure it, that can all be discussed and debated endlessly, but the public should be able to get up around that reservoir again.
You believe that your colleagues on the board would support that notion?
Oh, absolutely.
Damien, is it going to be possible to turn the city's head around on this? I know that there's a lot of tension in that room when that committee meets, and you're now the chair of the committee. How do you see that playing out?
I think this is one of the biggest issues impacting this corner of the Bronx. Public access is a real need here for a host of reasons. This is a gem of the Bronx, and it's become a burden on this community because of the work at the filtration plant, which is now extending to Jerome Park Reservoir, and the fact that we have to look out from our homes and see a giant fence. It's almost become the forbidden fruit here, and I think that there is a lot of benefits to the community, and not just recreational. I think that this is the kind of thing that would draw, people don't like to say this, but you could draw tourism here in the Bronx, have people come up here.
Do you see this, and then, we have so much to talk about, and I know time is fleeting, but there is that proposal to build a pedestrian bridge across to link up two ends of Van Cortlandt Park across the Deegan. At the last FMC meeting, the DEP representative said, well, there has to be givebacks. I'm guessing if you and Bob and others push the notion of access to the reservoir, they're going to say, well, we've got to trade something off. Do you see this as a bartering chip of some sort?
Possibly. So far, they've never put anything on the table to barter with. So it's difficult to say. I would like to see the pedestrian bridge. Again, it's a critical link between really two sides of the park. It connects a historic passageway that goes down to Manhattan, up through the Bronx, into Westchester. I think if there needed to be some give and take, the community would be willing to pass, or at least I would, on the pedestrian bridge in favor of public access, which has been a concern of this community 20 years.
Right. Bob, your thoughts on that? And then I want to give you a chance to promote something which really is wonderful and special. That's this River Fest, but go ahead.
I want them both. I want the pedestrian bridge, and I want the access to the reservoir.
Right, so no deals for you just
yet. Deals. No.
All right, so now we're going to put this up on the screen. Give us a little bit about what this Riverdale River Fest is that's coming up this spring, which is a really interesting concept. Maybe many people probably don't realize how the access. Talking about access to the river is also really right there in Riverdale.
Yeah, it's first of all, it's something brand new. This is something that a group of people in the community, especially some people on the community board, Yael Levy in particular on the community board. There's been a long-time advocate for the Hudson River Greenway, a fellow named Paul Elston in the community. So a group of people have gotten together, and the idea behind this is that we have this resource that literally defines the Riverdale community, which is the Hudson River. And access to that river is almost impossible. There are only a couple of points where you can get to the river, private land at the Yacht Club, private land at the College of Mount St. Vincent, and a tiny little park at the Riverdale Metro North Station. So one of the things we'd like to do is give people an opportunity to get down to the river, and we'll be able to do that at the College of Mount St. Vincent.
Okay, so I just want to roll the date if we want to put that up on the screen if we can. Again, it's Sunday, June 13th at 1 o'clock, the College of Mount St. Vincent. Yet another way, if we talked about Earth Day or other things, of celebrating our natural resources and access to a natural resource, which is the Hudson River.
Absolutely, and it'll be a full-fledged festival. We'll have food, entertainment, that sort of thing. Some discussion of the Greenway and what it is and what it means.
RiverdaleRiverFest.org is the website. I want to also talk about other good news that we have, and then we'll talk about some other issues. And Damien, you're going to enjoy this as well. We're going to go on the telephone and talk to my friend Jay Nadler, who's opening a new deli in a place where they said it couldn't be done. Jay Bars is opening. Jay, how are you? Jay, you with us? Do we have Jay?
Yeah, we have us.
Hey, how are you, Jay?
I'm good. How are you, Gary?
Jay, so it's pretty exciting that on Riverdale Avenue, the southern part of Riverdale Avenue, and there's no secret about it, there have been empty stores. You have put your stake in the ground and decided you're opening up J Bars, which is a new food place.
Too.
So tell us all about it and tell us about the opening that's this Friday.
This weekend we're going to be doing a grand opening with lots of food and a big ribbon cutting ceremony. And Damien and Bob, let me invite you personally here. I want you and everybody on the community board to come down and have pastrami, lox, whatever you need. You want some prosciutto, some mozzarella, anything you want. We got it all at J Bars.
Jay, tell me a little. I mean, this is, listen, stores open up and that's an exciting thing, but this is particularly wonderful and particularly important happening right there where it is. So tell me a little bit about that.
South Riverdale Avenue has been an incredible place where everybody passes by every day, but that's all they do is pass by. And we need to give them reason to stop. And J Bars is the reason to stop.
Well, the first
and everything else is going to come forward. Hopefully I've started something that other people will come. After I started with J Bars, Papa John's, which is a national chain, came to the same street that I came on. And I think that it's just an area that is very accessible here in Riverdale that has been underutilized. And I think, Damien and Bob, we need the community board to get behind us and create some kind of excitement about South Riverdale Avenue, where there are just as many stores as Johnson Avenue.
Right.
And the parking is better than Johnson Avenue. And let me hear what you have to say.
Damien, what are the challenges there? And I know you support what Jay is doing.
Absolutely.
But what are the challenges of refilling that southern part of Riverdale Avenue?
We've had some issues with some landlords there, but from our perspective, from the board's perspective, it's just good to get some fresh ideas, some enthusiastic business owners there, and really a good deli.
I was going to say fresh food.
And fresh food. Nothing's going to draw people to an area like good food. I don't want to take away from Jay's thunder there, but we have an excellent bakery there on the corner right down the street from him, and this will complement that. There is several restaurants on the street, but clearly there's been a bit of a downturn there, and we're just excited that Jay is opening up a new business there. There's a blossoming merchants association there, and we're committed to find businesses and business owners like him to move into our community because we can support them.
Jay, why don't you give me the pitch now? So it's Friday is the grand opening, but you're gonna do special
Friday
things
is the
all
grand
weekend.
opening with a ribbon cutting ceremony with Assemblyman Dinowitz and Councilman Coppell, and I've put out for Congressman Engel. I don't know if he's going to show up, and obviously June Iceland, who's a good friend. And let me extend an invitation to both of you guys and everybody else on the Community Planning Board. And Gary, I know you'll be there, and so will Suzanne.
Right. Suzanne, who has her store around the corner, listen to her.
Exactly. Suzanne's haircutting. Get your kids' haircuts at Suzanne's place and buy some books and some games.
Great.
In any case, I want everybody from the Community Planning Board and Bob.
Jay, I got to run.
Bender, but the other Bob.
Jay, we got to run. We got other things we got to do. It's 3714 Riverdale Avenue, J Bars, a wonderful new place. It's opening up, and it really, hopefully, will signal the beginning of big things on that part of Riverdale Avenue. Thanks for your time, Jay. I guess he's gone. We want to get another Bob on the phone. I think our friend Bob from Riverdale, who writes for the Bronx News, is joining us. Hello, Bob. How are you?
How are you, Gary?
Good.
How are you, Damien and Bob Bender?
Good evening.
Hey, how are you?
Gary, we made a deal several years ago when they started work in Van Cortlandt Park on the filtration plant. We said we were going to play a round of golf on the new golf course on top of the filtration plant.
I never made that deal, but okay.
We did. You said yes, and I said no.
I don't play golf.
Since we have the new monitoring chairman there for the filtration plant.
So, wait, Bob, what is your point here?
I'd like to ask Mr. McShane and the chair of the Community Board 8's Parks Committee if we will be able to play golf on the new golf course on top of the new filtration plant.
All right. Will there be a golf course of some sort, a driving range or otherwise, on top of that?
There's supposed to be a driving range on top. At the moment, there's actually something of a disagreement between DEP and the Parks Department over who exactly is responsible for maintaining this property on top of the filtration plant.
Oh, you mean they hadn't settled that?
They haven't settled that yet. To the best of my knowledge, they haven't settled that yet. So I have a feeling that until they do, you're not actually going to be hitting any golf balls.
And you're not going to promise it. Did you want to weigh in on that question?
I look forward to the day when I can hit golf balls on top of that filtration plant because I won't have to see what's underneath it anymore. And all of those construction folks who we like spending their money in our community will be gone, though.
I want to go back to something we had said earlier in the show, and that is we're going to talk about the parade grounds. Now, as I understand it, they found water, there's some flooding of some sort that they hadn't anticipated. Can you enlighten us, because it's such an important part of the Bronx,
Sure.
Can you enlighten us as to what the status is of the parade grounds?
The last that I heard is that they have actually done the tests that they wanted to do, and they're trying to figure out from the composition of the water. In other words, does it have chlorine in it, and therefore is it drinking water that's leaching into the field? They're in the process of doing those tests right now. Once they complete those tests, presumably they'll then have a much better idea of where this water is coming from. But at the present time, they don't know the answer to that question.
And you don't have an idea at this point on when the entire parade grounds would be opened up?
We don't have a date.
Do you have a sense, because of course Harris Field right near where we are at Lehman College has also had its issues. We don't have enough time to get into that. How serious is the problem of lack of fields in this part of the Bronx now that Harris Field, which is huge and an important spot, and the parade grounds?
Oh, it's a tremendous problem. We talked before about a local soccer league, youth soccer league, that was displaced. We've got baseball, we've got cricket, we've got women's soccer leagues. We've got,
and they really all don't have a place to play.
There are about 40 different leagues that have permits for the parade grounds that don't have any place to play right now. Some of them may have made arrangements on their own that we don't know about, but a lot of them were in touch with the community board. That's how we found out about the soccer league.
Right. And so you do what you can, but I mean...
There's a limit to, exactly.
Damien, we have only about 40 more issues to talk about and about 40 more seconds to go. Just make the sale for people who have questions or about your community board or other community boards. How do they get to you? What should they do?
Sure. All community boards have a district manager and a staff that are in the office 9 to 5 every day. If you have any issues in the Northwest Bronx, Kingsbridge, Riverdale, Spite, and Dival, you can reach us at 718-884-3959, and you can ask for myself. I won't be there, but Nicole Sten, our district manager, will be glad to help you.
And she'll get you the information.
Absolutely.
And also all the community boards. I mean, there's a dozen ways to find them on the web and get all the information. BronxMall.com is one of those ways. Damien McShane from Community Board 8, thank you so much, especially again at the last minute. And Bob Bender, thank you. And we hope you'll do what you can to get our kids and other people a place to play.
We'll do our best.
Folks, if you have further comments or questions on anything you heard on tonight's show or anything going on in the Bronx, then email them to us at BronxTalk@hotmail.com, and we'll read those on the air during a future program. Archives of our show are available at blip.tv. Just search for Bronx Talk. Now, next week, we're going to have some fun as we meet the people who are marketing Bronx beer, Bronx soda pop, and a marketer of a host of other Bronx items. We're also going to be doing a show along the way on Bronx movies, so a lot of fun things coming up next week and into the month of May, so make sure you join us. Then on May 10th, City Controller John Liu will join us to talk about a number of important issues, maybe some of the same ones that we talked about tonight. Lot to do. We'll see you every Monday night at 9 for Bronx Talk here on BronxNet, Cablevision Channel 67, Verizon Fios 33. Thanks, of course, to producer Jane Folloro for helping to make it all happen. Good night. Don't get up. Stay where you are.